I was in my car when the call came through. Thursday afternoon, 4:17 exactly, because I remember looking at the dashboard clock and thinking how strange it was that your entire future could shift in the middle of rush hour traffic. My mom's name lit up the screen and I answered on Bluetooth because I was merging onto the interstate and my hands were full. Your brother needs the apartment. 6 words. That is all it took to unravel 3 years of my life. I pulled into a gas station parking lot because suddenly I could not feel my hands on the wheel. What are you talking about? Derek is moving back home and he needs a place to stay while he figures things out. The apartment you are renting from us, Elise, he needs it by the 1st of next month. I sat there with the engine running, watching a woman pump gas into a minivan, her toddler screaming in the back seat, and I thought about how normal her day probably was. My brother Derek is 29 years old. He has a degree in marketing from a school my parents paid for in full, $86,000 over 4 years. I know the exact number because my dad mentioned it at Derek's graduation dinner the same way someone mentions a charitable donation. He worked in Denver for 18 months at a startup that sold organic dog treats, then quit because his boss had unrealistic expectations, which is what my mother told everyone at Christmas. What she did not say was that Derek had been written up twice for missing deadlines and once for not showing up to a client pitch. He moved to Austin after that, worked for a tech company doing social media coordination, lasted 7 months before he decided it was not aligned with his values. My mother sent a group text when he quit. Derek is taking time to reassess his path. We are so proud of him for prioritizing mental health. I was living in the apartment above my parents' garage. Small, 600 square feet, but it had good light and I had painted the walls myself, soft gray with white trim. And I had built shelves along one wall for my books using reclaimed wood from an estate sale. I had been renting it for 3 years, $400 a month, which my dad called a family rate. I paid on time every single month, first of the month, Venmo transfer before noon. I kept records. I have a spreadsheet going back 36 months, not because I did not trust them, but because I am the kind of person who keeps records. I am 26 years old and I work as a medical transcriptionist from home. I type doctor's notes, patient files, surgery summaries. I hear people's worst days translated into clinical language, and I turn it into documentation that gets filed into systems most people never think about. I make $38,000 a year. It is not much, but it is mine. I paid my own way through community college, 2 years at Piedmont Technical, then I transferred to finish my bachelor's online while working full-time at a dental office. My parents did not pay for any of it, not because they could not, but because, as my dad said when I asked, "You are not Derek," and Derek has always needed more support. I took out $19,000 in student loans. I paid them off in 4 years by living in that apartment, driving a 2009 Honda Civic with 174,000 miles on it, and eating the same rotation of 7 meals every week because I had calculated the cost per serving and optimized my grocery runs. My mother told her sister I was obsessive about money. I heard her on the phone one Sunday when I came downstairs to pay rent. "Elise counts everything," she said. I do not know where she gets it. Like thrift was a diagnosis. So when she called that Thursday and told me Derek needed the apartment, I already knew what the conversation would sound like before I asked the next question. Where am I supposed to go? "You will figure it out, Elise. You always do. You are so capable." That word. Capable. It has followed me my entire life like a participation ribbon. Elise is so capable. Elise does not need help. Elise will handle it. It is the word people use when they want to abandon you without feeling guilty about it. I asked her how much notice I had. 3 weeks. Derek is driving back from Austin next Thursday, and he needs time to settle before he starts job hunting again. I did not yell. I did not cry. I sat in that gas station parking lot and watched the woman with the screaming toddler finish pumping, get back in her van, and drive away. Then I said okay and hung up. The apartment above my parents' garage was not supposed to be temporary. When I moved in 3 years ago, my dad said I could stay as long as I needed. We are family. Elise, this is your home too. I had painted those walls. I had installed a shower curtain rod that did not fall down every time you touched it. I had spent $140 on blackout curtains because the streetlight outside shone directly into the bedroom and I am a light sleeper. I had planted herbs in pots on the narrow balcony, basil, cilantro, thyme, and I watered them every morning before I started work. Small things, but they were mine. Derek has never kept a plant alive longer than 2 weeks. I know because my mother used to ask me to water his dorm room succulent when I visited him at college, back when I was still in high school, and my parents drove 4 hours to see him every other weekend. They never drove 4 hours to see me when I went to community college 20 minutes from home. That night, I started looking for apartments. One bedroom, anything under $900 a month, because that was the absolute top of what I could afford if I cut back on groceries and stopped contributing to my savings account. I had been saving $200 a month for 2 years. It was supposed to be an emergency fund, but it had turned into a maybe someday I can buy a small house fund. I had $40,800 in that account. It felt like a lot until I realized it was barely enough for the first month, last month, and a security deposit in this rental market. I found one apartment that fit my budget. It was 40 minutes from my parents' house, which meant 40 minutes further from the grocery store I had been going to for 3 years, the library where I had a card and knew which section had the best reading chair, the coffee shop where the owner knew I took my Americano with nothing in it and always had it ready when I walked in on Saturday mornings. The apartment was on the third floor of a building with no elevator. The listing said cozy, which I have learned means too small to photograph well. The kitchen had linoleum peeling at the corners, and the bathroom had one of those combined shower tub units with rust stains that looked like they had been there since 1987. But it was $850 a month, and the landlord said I could move in first if I had the deposit by Monday. I scheduled a viewing for Saturday morning. That Friday, my dad called. I was in the middle of transcribing a consultation for a patient with stage 3 lymphoma, and I almost did not pick up, but I have never been able to ignore my dad's calls. Hey, kiddo. That is what he has called me since I was 8. Kiddo. Like I am perpetually too young to be taken seriously. Your mom told me about the apartment. I waited. I know this is hard, but Derek is really struggling right now. Elise, he needs family support. He has family support. He has you. He has mom. He has the apartment. We think it would be better for him to have some space. You know how he gets when he feels crowded. I did know. Derek gets anxious when people ask him about job applications. He gets defensive when someone suggests he wake up before 10 a.m. He gets distant when my mother asks if he has heard back from any of the 200 companies he claims to have applied to, none of which I believe he actually applied to, because Derek has been talking about his potential for as long as I can remember, and I have never once seen him sit down and do the work. But I did not say that. I said, I have been paying rent for 3 years, Dad. I know, and we appreciate that, but this is temporary. Derek just needs 6 months to get back on his feet. 6 months turned into a year the last time Derek needed to get back on his feet. That was when he lived in their basement after the Denver job and spent 9 months sleeping until noon, playing video games until 3 a.m., and eating my mother's cooking while telling her he was networking. You will find something, Elise. You are resourceful. There it was again. Resourceful, capable, the words people use when they mean you are on your own. I looked at the apartment on Saturday. It was worse in person. The landlord was a man in his 60s who wore a polo shirt with mustard stains on the collar and kept calling me sweetheart in a way that made my skin crawl. The cozy kitchen had a stove with only 3 working burners. The bathroom had a window that did not close all the way. The bedroom was just big enough for a full-size bed and a narrow dresser if I did not mind turning sideways to get past it, but the worst part was the smell. Not bad exactly, just old. Like the building had been holding its breath for 30 years and nobody had opened a window. I told the landlord I would think about it. He said he had 2 other people looking, and if I wanted it, I needed to decide by Monday morning. I sat in my car in the parking lot and called my best friend Jordan. Jordan and I met in community college, bonded over being the only two people in our communications class who actually did the readings. She is a paralegal now, shares an apartment with her girlfriend in a neighborhood I cannot afford, and she is the kind of friend who tells you the truth even when it is inconvenient. She picked up on the second ring. How bad is it? I laughed because that is the thing about Jordan. She already knows. It smells like someone died in it in 1993 and nobody found the body until 1997. Elise, you cannot live there. I know. So do not take it. I do not have another option. Jordan was quiet for a second. Then she said, "You could tell your parents no." I have thought about this exact sentence maybe 6,000 times in my life. The idea of telling my parents no. The idea of standing in their driveway and saying, "Derek can find his own place. I was here first. I pay rent. This is not fair." But the problem is, I already know what will happen. My dad would get quiet. The disappointed quiet. The one where he does not argue, he just looks at you like you have hurt him in a way he will never quite recover from. My mother would go cold. The kind of cold where she still talks to you, but every sentence has an edge. And she would bring it up at every family gathering for the next 10 years. Remember when Elise refused to help her brother? Jordan, they would make me the villain. They already think you are the villain, Elise. You just have not noticed because you have been too busy trying to prove you are not. I signed the lease on Monday. First month, last month, security deposit, $2,550. My emergency fund dropped to $2,250. I had 2 weeks to pack. Derek arrived the following Thursday in a Jeep my parents bought him for his 24th birthday. I was carrying a box of kitchen supplies down the stairs when he pulled into the driveway. He got out wearing a t-shirt that said "Good Vibes Only" and sunglasses that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. He saw me, waved, yelled, "Hey sis, thanks for this." I did not wave back. My mother came out of the house carrying a casserole dish like she was welcoming him home from war. She kissed his cheek, took his duffel bag, told him she had made his favorite dinner. I carried my box to my car. Nobody offered to help. The day I moved out, my dad was at work. My mom was at her book club. Derek was inside the apartment I used to live in, probably already sprawled on the couch I had left behind because it did not fit in my new place. I made 6 trips up and down those stairs. On the last trip, I stood in the empty apartment and looked at the gray walls I had painted, the shelves I had built, the spot by the window where my small desk used to sit. I had spent 3 years here. I had filed taxes from this address. I had learned to cook real meals in that narrow kitchen. I had sat on that balcony every Sunday morning with coffee and a book and felt, for maybe the first time in my life, like I had something that was mine. I locked the door, left the keys on the counter, and walked down the stairs. I did not say goodbye to anyone. The new apartment was exactly as depressing as I expected. I unpacked in silence, tried to arrange my furniture in a way that did not make the place feel like a storage unit, and failed. The bathroom window let in a draft even when it was closed. The refrigerator made a clicking noise every 40 seconds, like it was counting down to its own death. I sat on the floor that first night because I had not set up my bed yet, and I ate peanut butter straight from the jar because I had not unpacked my dishes. My phone buzzed. My mom settled in, "Okay?" I stared at the message. Not "Are you okay?" Not "I am sorry this happened." Not "We will help you however we can." Just a question with a thumbs up emoji, like I had moved into a dorm room and she was checking that I had found the dining hall. I did not respond. 2 months went by. I went to work, paid my rent, bought groceries at a store where nobody knew my name. I drove past my parents' house once on the way to return library books, and I saw Derek's Jeep in the driveway at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. I did not stop. My mother called every Sunday like clockwork. She talked about Derek's job search, how hard he was working, how many interviews he had lined up. She did not ask how I was doing. She asked if I was still at that little place, the way you ask someone if they are still working at a job you think is beneath them. Thanksgiving came. My mother sent a group text. Dinner at 3, bring a side dish if you can. I almost did not go. I spent the entire morning staring at my phone, drafting and deleting a message that said I was sick, I was busy, I could not make it, but I went. because that is what I do. I showed up with roasted Brussels sprouts that I had spent 90 minutes preparing, and I walked into my parents' house where Derek was already sitting on the couch in sweatpants, playing on his phone, contributing nothing. Dinner was the same as every dinner. My dad asked Derek how the job search was going. Derek said he had a few really promising leads. My mother said she was so proud of how resilient he was being. Nobody asked me anything. At one point, my Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, turned to me and said, "So, Elise, you are still doing that typing job?" "Medical transcription," I said. "Oh, right, that is nice. Do you like it? It pays my bills." She smiled the way people smile when they are being polite and have already decided your life is not interesting. Then she turned to Derek, asked him what kind of work he was looking for, and he talked for 15 minutes about his passion for brand strategy and how he was really trying to find a company that aligned with his values. I left before dessert. My mother texted me an hour later. "You did not say goodbye." I wrote back. I had to go, and I turned my phone off. December was worse. The holidays have always been the time when my family performs togetherness the hardest, and this year was no exception. My mother invited me to help decorate the tree. I said I had to work. She invited me to a cookie baking day. I said I was busy. She called me on a Wednesday evening, and her voice had that tight edge it gets when she is about to say something. She has been holding on for too long. "Elise, I do not know what is going on with you, but you have been very distant. I have been working. It is more than that. You have been cold. You barely spoke at Thanksgiving. You have not come by the house. You are acting like we did something wrong." I sat on my couch in my dim apartment with the clicking refrigerator, and I felt something crack open in my chest. "You gave my home to Derek." There was silence. Then she said, "It was never your home, Elise. It was our property. We were letting you stay there." I closed my eyes. "You told me I could stay as long as I needed. And you did. And then circumstances changed. You gave me 3 weeks' notice to move out of the place I had lived for 3 years so Derek could have it while he figures his life out for the fourth time. Elise, your brother is going through a hard time." "So was I, Mom. Nobody asked." "Because you do not need help the way Derek does. You have always been fine on your own." I hung up. I did not yell, did not slam the phone down, just pressed the red button and set it on the couch and sat there in silence. That night, I did something I had never let myself do before. I pulled up a notebook and I started writing down numbers. $86,000 for Derek's college, zeros for mine. $27,000 for the Jeep my parents bought Derek. $0 for a car for me. I bought my own. $400 a month. Rent I paid for 3 years. $14,400 total. Derek has paid in his entire adult life. 4 family vacations Derek was invited on in the last 6 years. Trips to Colorado, California, North Carolina, Maine. I was invited to 0 of them because, as my mother said, we did not think you would be able to get the time off work. I added it up. Rough estimate. My parents had spent $160,000 more on Derek than they had spent on me. And the one thing I had asked for, the one thing I had paid for, the apartment I had rented and maintained and treated like it mattered, they took it away and gave it to him. I closed the notebook. I did not cry. I just sat there and felt the weight of it, the full shape of the thing I had been pretending not to see for 26 years. I was never going to be enough, not because I was not capable or resourceful or independent, because they had decided a long time ago that Derek was the one who needed them and I was the one who did not, and no amount of proving myself was ever going to change that. A week before Christmas, my dad called. "Elise, we need to talk about Christmas Eve." "Okay, your mom is upset. She feels like you've been pulling away and she does not understand why." I did not answer. "We want you to come to Christmas Eve dinner, but we need you to make an effort. Be present. Be kind to your brother. He is having a hard time, and he does not need negativity." I looked around my apartment, at the walls I had not bothered to paint because I did not feel like this place would ever be home, at the kitchen where I ate the same meals alone every night, at the bathroom with the draft that made my towels smell like cold air. What has Derek contributed to Christmas? What do you mean? Is he bringing food, helping cook, cleaning up, buying gifts? Elise, that is not the point. What is the point? The point is, family supports each other. You are right, I said. The family does support each other. And I have been supporting myself entirely on my own, while Derek has been supported by everyone, including me, because I gave up my home so he could have another 6 months to figure out what the rest of us figured out in our 20s. Elise, I am not coming to Christmas. There was a long silence. Your mother is going to be very hurt. Then she can call me and tell me herself instead of sending you to do it. I will be there when Derek starts contributing the way I have been contributing. Until then, I am done pretending this is equal. I hung up. My mother did not call. Christmas Eve came and went. I worked a half day, made myself dinner, watched a movie, and went to bed at a reasonable hour. My phone stayed silent. No text, no voicemail, no last-minute guilt trip, just silence, which told me everything I needed to know. I was not worth the effort of an apology. I was only worth the effort of a reprimand. 2 days after Christmas, I got a voicemail from my dad. Elise, I think we all need some space to cool off. Let's reconnect in a few weeks when emotions are not so high. I deleted it. January came. I started applying for higher-paying transcription jobs, medical coding positions, anything that might get me out of the apartment with the clicking refrigerator. I got an interview for a coding position at a hospital system 90 minutes away. The pay was $52,000 a year. It was not life-changing money, but it was enough to save again, enough to start over somewhere nobody knew my family. I got the job. I gave notice at my current position, gave notice to my mustard-stained landlord, and started packing. I did not tell my parents. The day before I moved, my mother texted, "Haven't heard from you in a while. Is everything okay?" I wrote back, "I am fine. I am moving for work. I will send you my new address when I am settled." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again, then nothing. I moved on a Saturday in February. I rented a U-Haul, packed everything I owned in 4 hours, drove 90 minutes to a town I had only visited once. The new apartment was smaller but brighter, second floor, no draft, a refrigerator that did not click. I unpacked alone, built my bed, arranged my books, hung my clothes. That evening, I sat on the floor and opened my laptop. I wrote an email. Subject line, I need to say this. I wrote it to my parents, but I did not write it for them. I wrote it because I needed to see the words outside my head. You've spent my entire life telling me I am capable, independent, resourceful. You were right. I am all of those things. But I did not become that way because I wanted to. I became that way because I had to. Because you decided Derek needed you more, and I had to learn not to need you at all. You took the apartment not because Derek deserved it more, but because you knew I would survive it and he would not. You have always given him what he needed and told me to figure it out. So I am figuring it out. I am starting over somewhere you are not. I am building a life you will not be part of unless you can show me that I matter as much as he does. I do not need an apology. I need evidence. I need you to show up for me the way you have shown up for him every single time he asked. Until then, I am done. I read it twice. I did not send it. I saved it in my drafts, closed the laptop, stood up, and looked around the apartment. It was not much, but it was mine, and nobody was going to take it from me. 3 months have passed. I have not spoken to my parents. My mother sends a text every few weeks. Thinking of you. Hope you are well. I do not respond. My dad sent one email in March. We miss you, kiddo. I archived it. Derek posted on social media last week. Big news, starting a new position in sales, excited for this next chapter. My mother commented, "So proud of you, honey." I liked the family group page, muted their accounts, and kept moving. I do not know if my parents will ever understand what they did. I do not know if Derek will ever realize how much was handed to him. I do not know if I will ever get the apology I deserve. But I know this. I do not owe anyone access to my life just because we share DNA. I do not owe forgiveness to people who have not asked for it. And I do not owe patience to a family that spent 26 years teaching me my needs do not matter as much as my brother's comfort. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for their family to see them. I am not waiting anymore. I am building a life where I am already seen by myself, and that is enough.